just because you may like things that are different than a typical male doesn't mean that you're really a female in a male's
Yeah.
body.
So within the context of the church, I
Yeah.
think, talking around this issue with other believers, um, I think we often get into that mindset. We kind of look, I don't want to say look down because it's not really, I think, correct. But often we will say something general like, oh, those are the liberals, or those are the progressives,
Yeah.
or those are those people out there, way on the left that are doing all these crazy things. And I think we have to be so careful how we reach out to others, because the end game is to get people the gospel. But I think we need to interact and know how to speak to people that are struggling with this. And I love in the
Mhm.
book how you really acknowledge the fact that this is really hard stuff. I mean, doctors are confused, the politicians are confused, parents are confused, the kids are confused, teachers are in the middle and they're confused. And I think we just have to understand that we're all fallen, and we're all susceptible to a variety of different things. So we have to learn to converse in a way that
Mhm.
has charity and extends the olive branch to people and welcomes them into the church. But I think the progressive church, uh, m- by welcoming in, I think they mean something very different. They mean welcome
Oh,
and
yeah.
affirm. But
Mhm.
we know that that's not uh, helpful, and that's deceitful in its own right. But
Yeah.
so I guess I'm curious, from your experience pastoring, you know, give us a little bit of insight or some pearls on how we can really engage a family that comes into the church. Like how do you envision the congregation wrapping their arms around those people, things to say, things not to say? How do you help? Like, can you give us a little insight on that?
Yeah, well, you first got to take an Ephesians 6 approach. Our enemy is not flesh and blood. Okay. And,
Mm,
and second, you got to start with prayer. And I mentioned that in the book too, because
yes,
we're dealing with spiritual forces.
you're
But
right.
third, uh, you got to take a First Corinthians 5 approach. If you're a born again believer who claimed Jesus Christ as Savior, and you're public about your immorality, we handle you one way. If you're an unbeliever searching for God, we should expect immorality.
Mm,
I mean, you don't
mhm,
clean
mm,
up and then come to Christ. You come to
mhm.
Christ and he washes you. So that's the idea. When people come in, the church needs to treat them like human beings, hurting
Yeah.
humans beings whose struggle
Mhm,
might be a little bit different than yours or mine. If
mhm,
in a
mhm.
church, and I mean, this is where I would say, if you're a pastor, you should probably listen real close to the next minute or two, because first of all, your church has to start to think through some of these issues because our church has already encountered it.
Yeah.
When you have, say, a 13-year-old boy who thinks he's a girl as a family in the church, the worst thing you or your church could do is turn your back on that child or that family.
Right. Right.
That's basically they're going to go look for help in community somewhere else. You need to continue to make sure they know Christ loves them and that you can work through these things with them.
Mhm.
Ideally, if you can partner that young man up with a mature believer who's of the same gender, who will
Yep.
help this young man realize, just because you may like things that are different than a typical male doesn't mean that you're really a female in a male's
Yeah.
body. All males are male, but all males are not the same. Some are great
Yeah.
athletes, others are great cooks. And
Yeah.
you could be a male and have a great eye for detail or love art or music. That doesn't make you a female on the inside. And finding
Mhm.
someone who can help you work out these ideas, or especially with young girls, what they're finding is a lot of preteen girls who are gender
Yep.
dysphoric, meaning they think they're males, are actually scoring very on the high functioning end of the autism spectrum because
Yeah.
they're very concrete thinkers. And they think,
Mhm.
I like pants, I like sports, I like my friends are all guys, I must be a guy. And society comes along and affirms them. And now you have a real problem. And as a church, you're only going to compound that by saying, well, if that's how you think, you get out of here. We have no room for you. What you
Yeah.
need to do is
Yeah.
make sure we do have room for you and we do love you and we are going to have somebody or a group pray for you, come alongside of you, help you go out of their way to make sure
Mhm.
every time you step in here that this is a place for you without affirming these false
Mhm.
beliefs.